I know a lot of people are really struggling with getting groceries into their house, and with that, sometimes people will cut back on the amount of produce that they're buying because they're afraid that it's going to go bad before they get to use it. I'm going to teach you today how I'm able to get all of this produce to last for weeks. All of this produce here on the table is actually over 2 weeks old right now, and it's still all perfectly fresh. Since then, I became a best-selling author of the Zero Waste Produce Guide, where I go through 75 fruits and vegetables, giving you all of the tips to keep them fresh for weeks. Some of these tips are things that I learned growing up on a farm and have been doing them forever, and other ones I have figured out over the years. But all of this has happened because for a time in our lives, we weren't able to afford groceries, and it was so stressful for us to have groceries in our house that this is the thing that I really focused on to fix our family's budget. During that time, I was also trying to gain as many resources as I could, and I started watching other YouTube channels like Under the Median, where Larry and Hope are a very frugal family and they teach all kinds of tips. This video is actually a collaboration with Under the Median, and today they are posting a video talking about all of their best money saving tips for buying produce. So after you watch my best storing tips for storing produce, go over and check out their video and make sure that you comment that you're coming over from the Cross Legacy. There is a link in the description taking you directly to the Under the Median channel so you can check it out. If you didn't know, the average family is throwing away over 40% of the food that they're buying, and a lot of that is happening with the produce that you're buying. So I want to walk through some of my most popular produce items and teach you all of the tips that I use. Now, you don't have to worry about taking notes because we actually have a special guide for you that's in the description. So make sure that you're signing up for the newsletter and you can get the freebie guide that will be sent out. For most of the produce items that I wash, I'm using 5% distilled white vinegar. That is going to kill off the mold spores, E. coli, listeria, and any other harmful pathogens on it, and it breaks down any pesticides on the produce items. I do try to buy organic as much as possible when it makes sense, when things are in season and local and I can get them. But sometimes I just have to focus on what is best for our family at the time. I try to follow an 80-20% rule. 80% of the time I'm trying to make the very best choice I can, and 20% of the time I'm giving myself a little bit of grace. For most of these items, I do have videos that break it down even further into details, but we're just going to do a quick overview of a lot of these produce items here so you can see how things are different. We're going to start this off talking about berries because that's kind of what started this all for me, was teaching about berries. So if you didn't know, there's different lifespans of the different berries, and when you're washing them with these techniques that I'm going to be teaching you, then they will last that amount of time. One thing that I think is really important is buying things that are in season and learning how far they're traveling to get to you. So as you will see, there are many produce items here, but strawberries are not one of them because it's not strawberry season anywhere local to me. So as we're going into the fall and winter months, you will see the produce items that I'm buying changing. So for any berries, you are going to follow these same instructions, which is 1/4 cup of distilled white vinegar to 10 cups of water. And you're going to soak those in cool water for 2 minutes. Now, it's really important that you're bobbing your produce items down during that time, that they get covered on all of the sides, and you're not walking away to go do something else. I always set a timer also when I am washing produce. Now, you're going to soak those for 2 minutes and then rinse them off to get any of the debris that's floating around in the water off of it. And then you're going to lay it out on a towel to dry. And it will take about 2 to 3 hours for everything to lay out and be bone dry before you put it away. Since I only go grocery shopping once a month, it's not a big deal to then take a half an hour to 45 minutes washing my produce items to lay them out to dry, and then I can relax while they're drying, and it only takes a few minutes to put the items away and get them into the refrigerator. Learning what things last the longest is also really important. So during the spring and summertime, when we have strawberries, blackberries, and raspberries, those are the items that will last blackberries and raspberries 2 to 3 weeks, and then strawberries 3 weeks. I try to use those up sooner. where blueberries and grapes will last longer. So right now it's grape harvest season, so I made sure that I bought some extra grapes. But grapes will last 4 to 6 weeks, and blueberries will actually last 6 to 8 weeks when you're storing them the way that I'm teaching. With most berries, I will use a plastic lid on the jar because it does release a little bit of moisture, and that way the moisture does escape out of the jar, where a metal lid keeps it completely airtight. Little things like learning about produce buddies and which items do well being stored near each other and which items are frenemies and don't like to be stored near each other will help also keep your produce fresh longer. So let me teach you a couple of those tricks. So avocados and bananas are ones that I always make sure that I buy organic because they're not sprayed with ethylene, which is a growth ripening hormone. So even if you're not worried about buying organic for any other items, it is worth it to buy it for organic avocados and organic bananas because they will stay fresh a little bit longer, but they also have produce buddies or frenemies. Avocados used to be one of those things that I would get on the day that I wanted to use it. I would go to the store and I would pick it up, and then, hopefully it didn't turn black before the next day. And then I started learning if I put them in the refrigerator, they were lasting a little bit longer. But if I put them in the refrigerator in my crisper drawer with my lemons, they would actually stay fresh for over a month. So these two are produce buddies, and you should always store them together, any citrus and avocados together. Bananas are one that I try to buy organic as much as possible, and when I'm buying them, I try to keep that seal on the top as long as possible because they do release their own ethylene, and keeping that seal on the top will help it last a little bit longer. I kind of forgot about it when we were getting ready for this video, so these are the two that I have left. Again, I haven't went to the grocery store in over 2 weeks. So these were kept on the counter away from all other produce items. If you have a banana hook that you can hang them, that's even better. But bananas don't like anybody, and they especially do not like to be put into a bowl with oranges and apples. These are fresh picked apples that actually came from a family farm by me, and we just got them off of the tree a couple days ago. If you're buying them from the grocery store any other time than right here in the late fall, they might actually already be a year old. They've been in cold storage in big buildings waiting for the time that they go to the grocery store. So if you're not freshly picking them, you might want to store your apples in the refrigerator and they will last longer. And I always keep them up on a shelf away from the other produce items. If you are going to keep them on a counter, make sure that you keep them separate from any other produce items and keep your apples and oranges in 2 separate bowls. In December is when we normally get our oranges because that is harvest season for oranges, even though you can get them at the grocery store all year long. And we keep those in our crisper drawer with the lemons and avocados. Onions are also a great item to get in the fall when it's harvest season for them, and they will actually last harvest season to harvest season. So if you can keep them in a cool spot, they can last all year long, and you can store shallots, onions, and garlic all together. But never store potatoes and onions near each other. They should be at least 3 feet away from each other, and potatoes will normally last harvest season to around March in your pantry, and that's when they will start to eye and want to be planted. With the potatoes, I normally store them in a wire basket with a light sheet or pillowcase on top of it so it blocks out some of the light, and put it in the coolest spot in your house. For a long time, we were just using a spare bedroom as our pantry, and it was the same temperature as the rest of the house. It was just dark in there. Once a month when I go grocery shopping, I always get a 6-pound bag of carrots, and we use that entire bag all month long. I store those in strips, sometimes all together with the carrots and celery in a glass container like this. It does not need to be stored in water, just in a glass container, either like this or in a jar, and they will stay crunchy for a month. Cucumbers are also one of those items that I'm washing with the vinegar wash. They will last whole for about 2 weeks in your crisper drawer, stored with other vegetables. And then once you cut them up, if you put them in a glass jar with a metal lid, this makes it completely airtight. With the skins on, it will last around 7 to 10 days. If you decide to peel the skins off, it will only last 5 to 7 days. I'm gonna hold this jar but talk about an avocado. But also when you're cutting an avocado in half, if you put it in this size jar, which is a wide mouth pint jar with a metal lid, the avocado will stay fresh for a few more days and then you can use it later. This is a cucumber and this is a zucchini. So I normally joke that if the zucchini is cucumber size, it needs to stay in the crisper drawer and it will stay fresh for a couple weeks. But if you're getting garden zucchinis that are leg size, those will actually stay fresh for many months in your pantry. Peppers is something I also always end up cutting up into slices and storing in a glass jar with a metal lid as I go to use them. And when I'm going to reach for a pepper, I will look and make sure that one isn't starting to wrinkle, and that is the first one that I'll use. But this is kind of a fun one. I got these peppers so inexpensively at the farmer's market because they were Christmas ones, which they call them sometimes because they're green, yellow, orange, or go into red. If you don't know, that's the ripening process of the peppers. And the produce stand was just getting ready to close for the season, and so I was able to score these Christmas kind of peppers at a really good deal. This is parsley, which will last around 6 to 8 weeks in my refrigerator, but there's some tips I want to teach you about parsley or cilantro. When you get it, you're going to want to wash it in the vinegar wash that I teach you, but it's also really important to trim off the bottom of the stems, which open up the vascular system of the plant, and to store this in filtered water. If you put it in your tap water, normally that has too much chlorine in it and it will end up killing the plants. So whatever water you normally drink is what you should put in with your plants when you're storing them like this. And then every 10 days to 2 weeks, I will trim off the ends 1/4 inch and they will stay beautiful and fresh the whole entire time. This is also the same exact method you would use for asparagus, and make sure that it's filtered water. Now these are green beans. I wash these a little bit different and not in the 2-minute vinegar wash. I make sure to set a timer only for 1 minute, and that will help kill off any of the mold spores and stuff on the outside of them, but the water doesn't sink into the inside of them as much. And after they're dry, you can store them in a glass dish. These are over 2 weeks old. Now, I love getting squash and using it as fall decor, which I also wash in the vinegar wash, but then we make recipes like our stuffed acorn squash recipe that we have that we use Italian sausage in it, and it is so delicious and something that we look forward to every fall and winter. I also love to be able to use spaghetti squash instead of pasta and making it a little bit more carb friendly for our family. So these squashes will actually last all through the winter time. If you get tired of having them out as fall decor and moving into the winter holidays, you can put these in your pantry. And then I try to use them up around February or March when we're trying to wrap up our winter kind of cooking and looking forward to spring items. I'm pretty simple, and we just like to get romaine lettuce and then we get spinach. This is our lettuce. It will stay crispy for an entire month stored this way in this glass container. You can put it in a large jar. I also use the vinegar wash to wash lettuce. I try to always use the romaine lettuce up first, and then I keep the spinach to use later in our grocery shopping cycle, because if we have any spinach left over, then I'm able to put it into the freezer and be able to use it in recipes frozen. So it's always a high priority for me to make sure that I'm using up the things that are going to go bad or I can't freeze first. There are some items that I wash in a salt water bath, and that's just because that is the way that I was raised learning how to do it. So items that are in the cabbage family, I wash with 1 tablespoon of sea salt to 10 cups of warm water. Make sure it's not too hot that's going to wilt your produce items, but warm enough that it's going to dissolve the salt. That will help kill any cabbage bugs that are hiding in your broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage items. We just actually used all of the broccoli to film a broccoli casserole dish that was one of my mom's favorite recipes that she served on the holidays, and that will be posted up on the channel in the next couple days. And then for cabbage, it's not something that my husband really loves and I like a lot. So I like when I'm able to sneak it into recipes, and he doesn't really know all of the time, but I end up shredding it into smaller pieces and putting it into the freezer, and that way I can pull it out all throughout the year. So some of the items that I don't wash before I store them is mushrooms is one of those. I like storing mushrooms in this half-gallon size jar with a paper towel at the bottom that helps collect any moisture that comes off of them. But the other best way to store mushrooms is in the refrigerator in a brown paper bag. We have hundreds of videos here on our channel breaking down all of these items and giving you more tips on it. And we also have our zero waste produce guide. If you're new to my channel, make sure that you're hitting subscribe and know that I answer every single comment that I see come through on the channel. So if you ever have any questions about produce items or looking for a video link, I'm happy to send it to you. And make sure to check out those resources that are in the description. We have a special newsletter sign up with a freebie right now that is Smart Shopping with the Cross Legacy. When you sign up for the newsletter, that will get emailed to you for free, and it has all of these tips on how to wash and store your produce. And make sure to go over to Under the Median and check out their channel and their produce video that they posted today.